As a freshman in college at Columbia University, I was new to New York City. I was in New York State growing up, but upstate New York and New York City are obviously a world apart. And there was a gentleman who lived on the street on 120th in Amsterdam, but coming to New York City as a 17-year-old, going to be about 18 when classes were starting, I had one direction, and it said basically get to your destination, block out the people, and just be safe. And Kevin, he lived on the corner 120th in Amsterdam, and one day after day ignoring him, stopped me in my tracks on the way to class, and he looked at me and he said, "Is there something wrong with me?" And I'll always remember a few weeks later, because I didn't respond, I didn't know how to respond, my roommate, who had engaged with Kevin day after day, as the weather was turning colder towards Thanksgiving break, he received a handwritten thank you note in our mailbox from Kevin. Because unbeknownst to me, my roommate had lent him a winter coat to get through the winter season. Here was a man who had nothing, but he had the heart and the will to find a piece of stationery and write a handwritten note to my roommate who had lent him a winter coat. I have not thought of Kevin in about 2 decades until I opened up the Parsha this week of Parshat Mishpatim, when the Torah, as Rabbi Hartman said, gives us some mitzvot, some rules, some mishpatim, some judgments that are pretty obvious that we should take care of each other. But this week, the Torah makes a distinction between 2 different types of giving tzedakah. The difference between a handout to literally a beggar and a loan that can help somebody get from one part of their life to the other. Almost each week in this Ziegler Sanctuary and in Family Minyan and Torah in the Round and Cone Chapel, we are blessed with B'nai Mitzvah. And every Devar Torah is filled, just as Sophia told us today, with some type of mitzvah experience. It can be OBKLA to help the homeless, Tomchei Shabbos, Friendship Circle, the Keen Special Needs Sports Program. It's just to name a few of the many opportunities through our Social Action Committee that our students participate in. And it's a beautiful thing because our children do not simply read the words of becoming a B'nai Mitzvah, but they act out what it means to be a responsible adult with a Jewish perspective in this world. As we heard over and over, the Pizza IDF program that Sophia is part of, and I encourage you to do that, to help somebody across the world that you do not even know, but literally will lift up their spirits for just a moment. And yet we know innately that performing an act of kindness is good. It feels good for us. But this Shabbat, the Parsha teaches us just a little deeper lesson of what these acts really mean to the recipient, but also to us as the giver. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, in his book, The Prophets, distinguishes between mishpat, our Parshat Mishpatim, of judgments or justice, and tzedek, tzedakah, righteousness. Heschel says that justice is simply a mode of action, but righteousness is the quality of a person. Righteousness goes beyond justice. Justice is strict and exact, but righteousness implies benevolence, generosity, and kindness. Justice and righteousness are mutually exclusive, but they must coincide. In other words, justice is handing that coat to Kevin on the corner. Righteousness is knowing that doing that act will allow him to survive one more day. And in our long list of mitzvot this morning, we read a phrase, Im kesef talvia te'ani imach. If there is somebody within your people who needs a loan, do it. Sefer HaChinuch, the book of education, who details the mitzvot and gives us the purpose behind the actions that we're supposed to take, explains to us that it is greater a mitzvah to give a loan to somebody that will return something to you than to give tzedakah to a beggar on the street. The rabbis explain that the beggar who is known to beg has no shame in what they have to do. But somebody who needs a loan, somebody who, if they get that gift, can get to a different stage of their life, that gift will spare them the opportunity or will spare them the moment that they will have to beg in the future. The mitzvah begins with the word im. Im tesef talvei etami, if there is a person. And the rabbis say that each time that the word im is used in the Torah, it's just optional. But the rabbis say 3 times that the word im is used in the Torah, it is a mitzvah, it is mandatory, and this is one of those. And the rabbis go even further. They ask, what is the purpose of God placing a poor person on this earth? God is God. It seems that God can provide for a poor person. And so perhaps that person is placed in front of our eyes to enhance the kindness that we should be doing in order for us to partner with God to get this person on their feet. It's not God that should make this person rich or give them a loan. It's us. It's you and me. I hearken back to those 20 years ago as Kevin was on the corner, and as he called me out, im kesef talvei etami, I began to participate in helping him as well. If I bought a bagel on the corner, it was 2 bagels, one for me and one for Kevin. You know, I watched as our entire dorm did this, and I watched miraculously as Kevin began to be hired for jobs in the neighborhood. He became part of our college experience. It's been 20 years, not only since I thought of this man, but since I've seen him. And in relearning this mitzvah, that memory came flooding back to my mind. Many of us, God willing, will never know what it means to beg. But many of us, either in our lives before today or at one point of our lives, will need a loan. Many of us know that getting that loan could help in a college education, a high school education, getting our child into a preschool, entering a synagogue, knowing that without that gift, our life might be different. This week when the rains were pouring down and many of us, all of us, God willing, had a roof over our head, I was imagining all those Kevins in the streets of Los Angeles who could only think about what it would mean to have a roof on their head as the atmospheric river rains interrupted our lives. Im kesef talvei etami. It's a simple act, but we need to see that person in need. As our rabbis teach, that can turn a life around. They can make this world a little bit gentler. Im kesef talvei etami. I think the rabbis were right. Perhaps Kevin was placed in front of my eyes 20 years ago so that my roommates and my classmates, that we could participate in being God's messengers, to recognize Kevin's presence in this world, to sustain his daily needs. And ultimately, 20 years later, when I opened up Parshat Mishpatim, for me to stand here and tell you his story so that each of one of us can recognize and find another Kevin to tell that story to someone else. Shabbat Shalom. We continue on page 2.